Hello there, my name is Mooseman and today I will be informing you of whether you should play, wait or avoid the top-down racing game, Absolute Drift. As always, we will be looking at gameplay, aesthetics, value, and future potential before making a final verdict on the release version of Absolute Drift. Absolute Drift is a trials-focused racing game in which you must master the art of drifting in order to complete a set of challenges. You look down upon your car from above and attempt to drift around turns and obstacles on the track. You can either use the keyboard or controller, and while both are definitely playable, the controller was the obviously superior option. While you're unable to rebind the keys, you do have some access to customization options, including changing between manual and automatic and turning steer assist on and off. There are three primary game modes in Absolute Drift: Free Roam, Drifting, and Drift Kana. Free Roam is the first mode that you should play in the game. As is in Free Mode, the game teaches you all the techniques and controls necessary to tackle the Drift and Drift Kana modes effectively. In Free Roam, there are missions scattered around an open area which you must complete in order to progress to the next world. Each mission will test a different type of movement or teach you a new trick, everything from standard drifting around objects and buildings to more advanced techniques like spinning and jumping onto platforms. Each time you unlock a new world, you will also gain access to additional Drift and Drift Kana levels. Besides being required for unlocking additional tracks, Free Roam is required first due to the unforgiving difficulty of the game. If you are not experienced in realistic drifting racers, then learning how to play Absolute Drift will be an absolutely frustrating experience, as you will be literally spinning in circles for the first 30 minutes of the game as you attempt to get a hang of how the car controls. The cars drift and control at the same realism as games like Forza, meaning you will be unable to simply jump into the game without spending a decent amount of time learning how the car behaves. Drifting too much will cause you to spin out, and controlling a drift effectively is what makes the game extremely challenging to master. While the challenge in Absolute Drift may off-put some players, Free Roam is designed extremely well to teach you everything you will need to know to put down a good score in event mode if you go through it completely. Event mode is split up into three parts. The first two parts, Drift and Mountain Drift, focus on getting the best possible score in multi-lap and single-lap environments respectively. Unlike most racing games, your time is not actually recorded in any way, because it is your drifting alone that is important for scoring high on the leaderboards. Each successful drift you complete will give you points to increase your multiplier. Fail a drift by hitting a wall or taking too long to perform another drift will end your multiplier. There are also additional points rewarded for hitting red point boxes and drifting as close as you can and fast as you can to red guide poles. The last part of event mode is Drift Kana, which is still score-based like Drift and Mountain Drift, but also includes a timer and puts you in a closed arena instead of a linear track. Your mission in Drift Kana is to rack up as many points as possible in time given by again hitting point boxes, drifting near poles, but also interacting with additional objects in the arena. These objects are similar to the missions in Free Roam and will have you performing more technical drifts. There are 6 cars available to you in the game: the Original, the Super, Das VIP, the Missile, the Huni Wagon, and the Huni Van. Each car allows you to customize the color and visual decals. I spent most of the time using Das VIP, but after changing between cars, I honestly can't tell if they handle differently or if they're just visual skins. Although I enjoyed my time with Absolute Drift, particularly the Drift and Free Roam modes, I do have to reiterate how frustrating this game can be. While the game provides you with all the tools necessary to learn and have fun with the game, I can almost guarantee if you have no experience with racing games outside the occasional Mario Kart game, you will probably be too frustrated to enjoy Absolute Drift to a degree that would warrant you buying the game. Being a trials-focused game, there is no multiplayer present in Absolute Drift. While multiplayer is a feature that I usually think of as being standard in racing games, it is actually understandable to a degree in Absolute Drift. The game is based on extremely precise technical skill, and after playing 10 plus hours of the game, I believe the technical nature of the game would not translate well to multiplayer. The courses are designed to be beatable cleanly only in the best of circumstances. Having multiple cars on the track would make it almost impossible to achieve. The visuals in Absolute Drift are hyper minimalistic with simplistic looking buildings and almost no texturing. Most of the map is stark white color, with important objects being displayed in bright red and some background objects being displayed in blue and yellow. Since the game is based on Japanese drift culture, the red and white feel seems appropriate when applied to the Japanese styled environment. This take on environment design may sound familiar, as it's almost identical to that of Mirror's Edge. Like Mirror's Edge, it works well at illustrating where you need to go and prevents extraneous details from getting in the way of your goals. The car itself produces dark black tire marks that look almost like ink drawings on the blank white road. A curious effect also occurs when you leave the ground. Your tire marks will go in the air as well, allowing you to trace back the route you came from even if you leave the ground. As a fan of minimalist style aesthetics, Absolute Drift does a great job of being stylized simplistically while still feeling artistically complex. One last note on the aesthetics is the soundtrack. The soundtrack is probably one of the best parts of the game, with over 3 hours of music composed by C41 and NYTE. The tracks complement the racing perfectly, with light and upbeat electronic melodies that rival even AAA racing game soundtracks. Absolute Drift is priced at $10, and I believe that's a pretty fair price for the amount of content available. Learning the game and completing free roam mode took me approximately 3 hours, but where the real value of the game lies is in the leaderboards for event mode. If you're like me and obsessed with putting down the best score possible, event mode leaderboards will keep you occupied for a potentially innumerable number of hours. However, if you have no interest in putting down a top score, you will still enjoy running the event mode tracks once or twice just to put your driving to the test. While I felt for the price the game had plenty of content, I do have one major criticism regarding content that I believe should have been in the game. The main thing that is missing in Absolute Drift is a ghost system. Being game based heavily on trials, this is a feature that I find no excuse for there not being in the game. Part of doing trials is learning how to improve on your past scores by watching your ghost and the ghost of other racers. Implementing a ghost feature is my #1 hope for the future potential of Absolute Drift. Absolute Drift is not for everyone. In fact, if you're not familiar with racing games at all, you will probably not enjoy the game much outside of the great aesthetic. But for those of you who thrive on complex driving mechanics and are looking to challenge yourself and your drifting ability, I recommend that you play Absolute Drift. The game is unforgiving and demands your perfection around every corner, but if you are up to the task, Absolute Drift will definitely give you a run for your money. Thank you for watching my play, wait, or avoid review of Absolute Drift. If you would like to buy the game, a link to the Steam store page is in the description below. And if you'd like to see more of my content, subscribe and check out my channel where I do reviews and other gaming commentary, such as my review of Halo Online, a free-to-play first-person shooter that runs on a modified Halo 3 engine, or last week's PC Gaming News Weekly, my weekly news show talking about upcoming games and controversy regarding PC gaming, with last week's episode looking at Arkham Knight's upcoming patch, Street Fighter V's new DLC unlocking program, and more prominent stories in PC gaming.